Hey folks, Sanjeev here from World Robotics League, and today I'm going to be explaining to you how to build a table that we will be using in pretty much all of our competitions, at least at the Craftsman level. So here is a table that I built a while ago, and I have been using it to create the challenges and then test them out at home before we release them out there. So if you look at the table, the key thing that you can know right now, I have pretty much stripped it down to the bare minimums. All you see here is a sheet of plywood, and then on top of that there are these pieces of woods that actually form the edges of the table. The pieces of wood that form the edges of the table are known as studs officially. So if you go to a store that sells lumber, for example in United States that would be Home Depot or Lowe's, you can actually just ask for a 2x4 or 2x3 stud. In this case we are using a 2x3 stud. Now what does 2x3 mean? 2x3 simply means that we are using a stud, a piece of wood that's 2 inches this way and then 3 inches this way. To be fair though, that is actually not completely accurate. 2x3 stud is actually 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches. And the reason there is a half-inch discrepancy is because the 2-inch thickness is when the wood is taken straight out of the log. So at that point of time you have 2 inches. But at that point of time the wood is not like cleanly cut, it's not polished, a lot of splinters and so on. So they shave it off and polish it a little bit, and because of which there is a half-inch loss on both dimensions. So literally it's actually 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches, but it is called 2x3. We would recommend using a 2x3 instead of 2x4 because that is what another competition, First Lego League as well uses. They use a 2x3, not a 2x4, even though 2x4 is the more common wood. The other thing that you may notice is that we painted our wood black, and the sole reason that we did this was if there were any other splinters, the paint would essentially kind of seal them along with the body of the wood. So go there. Anyway, so these studs are sold in any hardware store usually in 96-inch lengths, which is to say 8 feet length, and which works out great because the plywood is again a 4 foot that way by 8 foot this way length sheet of plywood, I guess. So when you take a stud that's exactly 8 feet long, the long edge of the plywood can take the stud as is without any modifications. It's only the short edge that actually needs a smaller piece of wood. And the smaller piece of wood that you actually need here is exactly 45 inches long this way. So 8 feet this way and then 45 inches this way. The reason this is 45 inches, even though the actual plywood is 48 inches, that is to say 4 feet, is because as you can imagine, once you put this wood, it's actually 1.5 inches as I had already told you, and then 1.5 inches on the other side. So essentially the edges, like from the edge of the plywood, we move 1.5 inches this way and 1.5 inches that way. So we get to be less, like 3 inches less than the width of the plywood itself. So that is 48 inches minus 3 inches of the sides, and that comes to be 45 inches. So 8 feet this way and 45 inches this way. So all you really need to do to build this table is get a sheet of plywood that's 8 feet by 4 feet. And here's one thing: when you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or your favorite store, get good quality plywood. Do not get anything called MDF, which is medium density fiber, which is essentially a inferior quality of wood that is essentially sawdust with a bunch of glue and then a bunch of compression. So the glue is not a very high quality glue, and when you put it in your home and temperature changes happen, then fumes may come out, just not good for you. And apart from that, it's not very strong and it's extremely heavy, so just not a good idea. Don't get MDF, go ask for plywood. Reasonably high quality wood in United States, at least in the regions that I am in, is willow wood or some sort of hardwood, or sometimes also oak wood. Anyway, so that you get the 4 feet by 8 foot a piece of plywood over here, and then you get 3 pieces of 2x3 studs that are 8 feet long. One of them, like 2 of them you keep as is, and one of them you can actually ask the hardware store people themselves to cut it for you. Many of them will do it for free. So you ask them to cut it to exactly 45 inches. And then you have your pieces of wood. You have 4 pieces of wood, 2 of them 8 feet and 2 of them 45 inches each. Okay, with that, it's up to you whether you paint it or not. Painting it really has no impact on the robot run. It simply is slightly nicer to look at, and hopefully it'll essentially take out all the burrs that can essentially hurt you or your kids. So place the wood like this. Like what we have done here is under the plywood we have a regular plastic table that's like 6 feet by 2 feet length, and we just place it on this. It's not clamped or anything. This thing, like, you can lift it, so just placing is plenty enough. The other thing to create the table is, once you have placed it, use a clamp. Okay, a clamp is essentially a vise. If you have dealt with woodworking at all, or if you've seen woodworking being done anywhere, a vise is essentially a device that will clamp two separate pieces that are not connected in any way together. So in this case, you can see this is actually it's a jaw in some ways that moves front and back. In my case, I'm using this jaw and to clamp the stud over here to the plywood at the bottom. The plywood is the one that's actually looking white, and the stud is the one that's black. So I can place it over here. Let me try and place it this other way, and then I can, I have this pistol grip. I can use this, and the pistol grip comes in, and there you go, and locks it on. Lock it on tight enough so that it doesn't move. In my case, I already have two clamps over there, one over there and one over there. And that piece of wood, this piece of stud, is actually not going anywhere, which is exactly what we want. The second thing that you want is essentially a drill. In my case, this is a power drill that I have. It's a corded drill. These are fairly inexpensive. In a hardware store, you can get them for probably $30–40. A really great thing to have around the house because you can use it for many purposes. Every homeowner should have one, in my opinion. Anyway, so I bought this a while ago, and what you need with this is, first, let me see if you can see this slightly better. This is what is called as a drill bit, and it is used to drill holes in wood. So you can take your drill and essentially, turn it around, and you can fit the drill bit right in there, in the center of this thing, and that's the way it is. So once this is powered in and you actually press this button, you can see the drill bit actually starts turning. And with this, what I should actually do is, I should go ahead and right over here under this plywood, I can take this and start pressing this thing. And what I would be doing is, I'll be drilling a hole from bottom towards the top, and the purpose of that hole is that it's called a pilot hole. I will later be actually pushing a screw in there. So I have a screw. You need probably 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches or 2 inches screw. Just one thing to be careful about is that the drill bit that you're using should be slightly thinner than the screw that you're planning to use. And the reason for that is that the hole that you're drilling is called a pilot hole, and it provides a guide for the screw to actually go in. If you take a screw and try to screw it directly inside a piece of wood, one, it's really incredibly hard to get in, and the second, even if you manage to get it in, it's likely going to splinter the wood. So not a great idea. First, drill a pilot hole with a drill bit that's slightly thinner than the screw. And then once you're done with that, and I would say you would need probably 3 or 4 pilot holes on this side. If you have a power drill, take the drill bit out, and this thing right over here, let's see if you can see it slightly better. It's a Phillips screwdriver bit. At the bottom it looks like that, and this will also go inside your drill in the power drill. So your power drill is actually fairly versatile. You can use it for drilling as well as screw driving things in, and that's why I was saying it's really good to have around your home. Let me see if I can fit this thing in here, and there you have it. So it converts from the drill bit to the screw driving bit. At this point of time, take your screwdriver. Your screwdriver has this square kind of Phillips cut over here. You can take it and fit it on top of your drill bit. There you go. And you can, again, the pilot hole that you had, put the screw at the bar, right at the edge of this, at the entrance of that thing, and screw it in. And that's all there is, really. 2 8-feet length studs, 2 45-inch studs, and a flat piece of plywood, and drilling from the bottom. Once the table is ready, you have screwed everything in, and these things are fairly rigid, not moving. You can just place it on any plastic table that is relatively flat. I would recommend a 6 feet length at least and 2 feet wide. Try not to use a table that has a bend in the center. Sometimes you can go to Costco or other shops and you can get a table that also bends this way, and that's just not a great idea because your top of the table, this plywood, will be sitting on a surface that may or may not be completely flat. So you may have the underside table like this, and your plywood will be sitting on top of this and moving a little bit. Just not a great place for your robot to run the runs, because sometimes it'll be going on a slope this way and sometimes it'll be going on a slope this way, and you would have problems with inconsistency. So that's pretty much it on how to create a table that you can use for World Robotics League, and as a benefit, the same table will be reusable for first Lego League.